Hey guys, I'm William, and I really wanted to make a video on this topic, but I had no idea how crazy it was going to get. I fully intended for this video to be 5 minutes. The more I learned just how crazy these scandals are, and you would not believe how many different criminal organizations they've been involved in. So it's a longer video, stay tuned. It's absolutely incredible, and it's going to blow your mind. I want to ask that if you have the time, leave a like, drop a comment below, tell me about your thoughts about everything going on right now, and enjoy. So with all this turmoil going on in the financial sector lately, I really wanted to make a video that kind of keyed in on at least one of those banks. And of course, as everything started to break down over this last week, Credit Suisse quickly became one of the largest catalysts of everything going on. So naturally, I kind of wanted to know, like, what set it off? How did we get to this point? How did Credit Suisse get to a point where they were so close to essentially failing? And I went on YouTube, and I could not find any video going through just whatever had happened, the scandals or fines, or, was it an asset class that they were concentrated in that had gone bad? I couldn't find anything. So I decided that this video would essentially be that. I never could have imagined how insane everything was at Credit Suisse. I'm not talking about just the last year or two, which it's actually mind-blowing how much went on over the last year or two. So here it is. What I've done is, like I said, I wanted to make a 5-minute video, make this a really quick in and out experience. It's not. This is crazy. I don't know how long this will be. I don't think it'll be anything too bad. But at the same time, I've sat down, I've made a slideshow for us to watch, because there's so many details that there was no way I was going to be able to remember. So without any further ado, let's go. Why Credit Suisse is terrible. So the history of Credit Suisse. Noble beginnings, originally founded in 1856 in Zurich, Switzerland, a very pretty place. Famous for their ski resorts, their cheese, and their deviously secret banks. Originally, the bank is built. Its purpose is originally a noble purpose to lend the money to build all these Swiss railroads and to lend the money to build the Swiss electric grid. However, historically, Credit Suisse is known for its strict client bank confidentiality and for being highly secretive. So the whole time that we're working on this, that we're looking through all these, what I really want you to think of is Gringotts. The two are not that far distinct. Part 1. Credit Suisse becomes a big boy. It's one of the world's 9 bulge bracket banks. That's a tough one to say. Bulge bracket banks. Essentially, this is considered a systemically important bank to the world. So they have so many arms and niches and things that they're involved in that if Credit Suisse fails, it's going to affect everything. And when they label something as systemically important, what they're essentially saying is that this bank is too big to fail. Can our economic system withstand all these banks going under? And at the time, the answer was no, that the banks cannot go under, that the government had to step in and lend them money. But that's essentially how large and how important of a bank this is. Act 1. Credit Suisse develops an attitude. Our first notable instance of Credit Suisse acting a little bad and getting a slap on the hand is in 1986. 1986, Credit Suisse is implicated in helping to store some of the estimated $5 to $10 billion that the Philippine dictator Ferdinand Marcos and his wife Imelda stole from the country during his 3 terms as president. It later emerged that Credit Suisse opened accounts for the couple under the fake names William Saunders and Jane Ryan, helping to shield their funds from scrutiny. So this is clearly not him walking in with sunglasses with his wife and a wig, pretending to be someone else and dropping off $10 billion. This is done willingly by the bank to help him evade anybody looking for $10 billion, probably notably the country. But to imagine as a bank that you're assisting someone this evil to run away with money, you're essentially screwing over an entire nation, in this case, the Philippines. In 1995, a Zurich court ordered Credit Suisse to return 500 million of these funds to the Philippines. So you can obviously tell the difference. He stowed away anywhere from 5 to 10 billion and then they returned $500 million. Now, what I've done is I've added this little box in the top right corner so that we can keep track of all the fines and losses that they accumulate throughout the entire presentation. And you'll be surprised at how large this number gets. Furthermore, 1999, they went a couple years without any issues, at least big ones, but 1999 is our next featured act. 1999, the Japanese authorities fined Credit Suisse and revoked its license over a shredding party, at which bankers destroyed evidence related to an investigation into whether it was helping companies conceal their losses. A bank spokesperson said serious lessons had been learned, corrective actions initiated, and disciplinary steps completed. That's so great. Man, you guys are on top of it. Pat yourself on the back. You guys learned your lesson. 2004, a Credit Suisse banker was arrested for allegedly helping launder at least 5 billion yen, now that's around $37 million, linked to Japan's largest Yakuza gang. The banker was acquitted on the basis that he was unaware of the source of the funds. This will not be the first time that you'll see Credit Suisse get involved in the mafia. Yakuza gang is huge in Japan. This is once again not an instance where the bank is sitting around unknowingly assisting evil people. The people that are doing this know good and well what they're doing, and all they see is dollar signs. Act 2. So some of these original things were pretty chill, like hiding $10 billion, helping companies hide losses, assisting the Japanese mafia. Small beans, right? Act 2 is where they kind of figure out, hey, we're not getting in much trouble for doing stuff like this, and we're making, bank doing it. So they just continue with this pattern of pushing the boundaries, and you'll see. I call this the era of shameless defiance for all those exact reasons. 2009, right in the middle of the 2008 financial crisis, well, 2008 meaning that era. Credit Suisse was fined $536 million for deliberately circumventing U.S. sanctions against countries including Iran and Sudan between 1995 and 2007. The bank said it had enhanced its procedures and was taking action internally. At least they got fined this time. We've crossed the $1 billion threshold in fines at this point. Just a willful negligence. Just knowing what they're doing is wrong and continuing to do it. 2011, Credit Suisse agreed to pay 150 million euros to settle an investigation into tax evasion by about 1,100 of its German clients. It's described that this is a complex and prolonged legal dispute that has been avoided with an agreed solution that provides legal certainty, the bank said. What we're about to roll into is Credit Suisse actively involving themselves in assisting people evade taxes. Rich people and people trying to hide money know that they can go to Credit Suisse and have this money hidden. This is not one or two employees who are acting out, who aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. This is a systematic issue within the bank that just continues to pop up. And you'll see this. The next couple of ones are just boom, tax evasion every time. 2012, U.S. authorities charged 4 former Credit Suisse bankers with fraudulently overstating the price of $3 billion of subprime bonds during the 2007 credit crisis. One former managing director, I'm going to butcher this, Sarah Gelden, was the only individual jailed in relation to the U.S. financial crisis. That's true. 2008, all that happened. You have all these people who, knowingly sold mortgages, subprime mortgages. When these mortgages were made, essentially the bank knew that as soon as the variable interest rate kicked in, most people would not be able to afford the mortgage. But nobody cared. It was someone's home. It was unfathomable at the time that people would default on loans for their own home. Credit Suisse is a huge member of that. And they're the ones charged. And of course, this one, I would say poor guy, but he's probably a scumbag. Kareem Sarah Gelden is the only person who's jailed in relation to the financial crisis. The only guy at all. And he's a, Credit Suisse guy. 2014. Credit Suisse was fined $2.6 billion and pleaded guilty to helping Americans evade taxes for decades in one of the bank's most explosive scandals to date. A Senate investigation uncovered aggressive tactics used by Swiss banks, with Credit Suisse having recruited clients at high-end events, courted a potential customer with free gold, and even delivered sensitive bank statements hidden in the pages of a Sports Illustrated magazine. Like, what? What does that even mean? They delivered sensitive bank statements hidden? Why would you go through the steps of doing that? Like, you'd have to know somebody at Sports Illustrated to put that into the... Like, it seems like an email, maybe not a paper trail email, but there's got to be a better way to do this than to use Sports Illustrated magazine, but they did it. And authorities eventually pressured Switzerland into unilaterally disclosing account information about U.S. taxpayers from 2014. Credit Suisse said, "We deeply regret the past misconduct that led to this settlement." You know, they were finally fined a big number for once. You'll see we've ticked up now to $3.79 billion that they've been fined for some of these scandals. 2016, a U.S. regulator fined Credit Suisse $16 million after identifying significant deficiencies in the bank's anti-money laundering program. The lender said it was taking appropriate internal remedial efforts. This is like the fourth time since 2010 that they've been caught not catching money launderers. And it's not just not catching them, it's actively aiding them. So taking appropriate internal remedial efforts is a really nice statement to say, thanks for the small fine, we're going to keep moving on. Just arrogant defiance of this bank, knowing at all levels of the bank that what they were doing was wrong, and it didn't matter because it drove profits and it drove top line. What's funny is they're driving all this top line, but if you look at a stock chart for the bank, it's just declining the whole time. They're one of the very few banks that came out of the recession and didn't see growth. They weren't like a Bank of America that just started climbing, or so much of this money is probably just going in their own pockets. So 2017, Singapore's financial regulator fined Credit Suisse $700,000. It's nothing. It's nothing. $700,000 is nothing for breaching money laundering rules in transactions linked to 1MDB, the Malaysian investment fund at the center of a $4.5 billion corruption scandal. Credit Suisse said it took its money laundering obligations seriously and was firmly committed to upholding the highest standards of the Singapore financial center. $4.5 billion corruption scandal, and they paid out $700,000. I mean, I think the answer to this is there's most likely people in the regulatory environment or even in the government who knew that things like this were happening and were likely benefiting from it. And at some point, some of these scandals just get too large to do nothing about. And I think these little slaps on the hand are, for the most part, for show. For a bank like Credit Suisse, $700,000 is an accounting error. It's just not even comparable to what they're doing. 2018, Credit Suisse agreed to pay $47 million to U.S. authorities over a corruption scheme in which it tried to win businesses by offering jobs to family and friends of Chinese officials between 2007 and 2013. A spokesperson for the bank said it had improved its compliance processes. So Act 3, I'm going to call this the moonshot because you've seen the pattern here. You've seen tax evasion, you've seen money laundering, supported by the bank, actively working to get these things to happen. The moonshot, this is where their heads get a little too big. And what they're doing is no longer, oh, you did money laundering, that's $700,000. Like, these end up being large fines, huge issues, national news. Credit Suisse recorded a $5.5 billion loss due to its risky exposure to the U.S. hedge fund, I can't pronounce it, Archegos Capital Management, which collapsed in early 2021. Credit Suisse said it took action against 23 staff and fired 9, and subsequently promised to put risk management at the heart of its decision making. This was huge news at the time. I do remember this one. This was an enormous hedge fund that went under. And of course, Credit Suisse losing $5.5 billion is no small matter. I included it in our total up here in the top right, although it's not technically a fine, it's just a loss, but $5.5 billion is a ton of money. Later in 2021, Credit Suisse was forced to suspend $10 billion of investor funds after the collapse of the supply chain lender Greensill Capital, whose loans were packaged and sold to Credit Suisse clients. The Greensill scandal, which stemmed from risky loans it extended to companies owned by the metals magnate, spiraled after it emerged that the former UK Prime Minister David Cameron lobbied ministers and government officials on its behalf. The bank is still trying to claw back money for clients and said actions have been taken against a number of individuals in relation to this case. They're just caught up with all the wrong people all the time. And I don't know, whenever you're a kid and you go to school and your parents say, remember who you are and, hang out with the right people, it's true. And I think it extends into this day and age. Like, you are who you hang out with. And constantly, this bank keeps getting caught with all the wrong people. All of this led to a $1.3 billion loss in 2021 for the company, which is big. Like, that's an issue. Stocks really saw that and began to panic. At this point in time, the total fines and losses between just the era that we've looked at it exceeds $9.81 billion. Like I said, this is a company that has just a little over $500 billion in total assets. Losing $10 billion is enormous. And then to actually see an operating loss is insane. And 2022 only gets worse. Credit Suisse faces charges from a Swiss court for allowing an alleged Bulgarian cocaine trafficking gang to launder millions of euros, some of it stuffed into suitcases. This resulted in the first criminal trial of a major bank. Right here. It's crazy. So the last thing here I titled Downfall. A number of things just begin to snowball in 2022, and it gets bigger and bigger until, we'll see. So in February 2022, details of 30,000 customers holding over $80 billion in accounts at Credit Suisse are leaked. The leaked account holders include a human trafficker in the Philippines, a Hong Kong stock exchange boss jailed for bribery, a billionaire who ordered the murder of his Lebanese pop star girlfriend, I shouldn't be laughing, and executives who looted Venezuela's state oil company, as well as corrupt politicians from Egypt to Ukraine. The funniest one I had to break out individually, and that was that one Vatican-owned account in the data was used to spend $290 million in an allegedly fraudulent investment in London real estate that is at the center of an ongoing criminal trial of several defendants, including a cardinal. All this information of 30,000 Credit Suisse customers are leaked to a German newspaper. And of course, Credit Suisse, historically secretive, historically Gringotts Bank, hide your stuff there. No one's going to find it. The one thing that the bank claims to be good at is where it is the first thing it fails at in 2022. By July 2022, following Swiss sanctions on Russia during the 2022 Russian invasion of Ukraine, Credit Suisse issued legal requests asking hedge funds and other investors to destroy documents linking Russian oligarchs to yacht loans, a move for which they face considerable criticism. And the U.S. House Oversight Committee launched a probe into the firm, demanding documents linked to the bank's compliance with sanctions on Russian oligarchs. They take all these papers of like yacht loans, these billion-dollar yacht loans that they finance, and they're trying to destroy the papers so that they can keep servicing these loans without having the actual link to the Russian oligarch. By October 2022, Credit Suisse stocks came under considerable pressure when rumors on social media projected the demise of the bank. According to financial analysts, the bank has a strong capital base and liquidity position. That is what Credit Suisse said. However, the fallout from comments made like that online, and of course, everything leading up to this 2021, 2022, some of these huge scandals led to the stock price falling even further. And insiders believed that in order to try and support the bank, that Saudi Prince Mohammed bin Salman was potentially looking to invest almost $500 million into the bank. Later that year, the Saudi National Bank became a 10% owner of Credit Suisse. Credit Suisse stated in December 2022 that customers had withdrawn over $122 billion in deposits. That is about as close to a run on the bank as you can get with the size of their bank. It might as well have been classified as that. And the only thing at this point that's keeping the bank alive, that's keeping it functioning, and keeping it from, doing what it did a couple days ago is the fact that everyone believed that the Saudis were essentially just going to support this thing. And of course, the Saudis dealing in oil have almost infinite money. So why not? Why can't they support one of the largest banks in the world? Just keep injecting money into it. They're clearly gaining some benefit from it. In February 2023, the company announced a $7.3 billion loss. This is not just a little over one anymore. This is a company, a bank, bleeding money. What's crazy is that every other bank at this point is killing it. Interest rates have gone up. They're benefiting from a higher, rate environment. And yet Credit Suisse is showing a $7.3 billion loss. On March 14th, Credit Suisse published its annual report for 2022, saying it had identified material weaknesses in controls over financial reporting. On March 15th, its share price dropped nearly 25% after Saudi National Bank, its largest investor, said it could not provide more financial assistance. The market price of the bank's unsecured bonds set for maturity in 2027 dropped to a low of 33% of their par value on that day, down from being valued at 90% of their par value at the beginning of the month. Of course, you had 2 or 3 other events that week leading up to this. One being the Silicon Valley Bank coming out and saying that they were becoming insolvent, essentially. And the other, I honestly can't remember the other at this point. Several of these American banks coming out heavily concentrated in tech, putting most of their investments in long-term US bonds with low fixed rates that are now worthless, considering you can go and get a 5% rate like it's nothing now. So when everybody got scared and ran to get their deposits, they were forced to sell bonds that they didn't want to sell at a loss, which is what caused the issue. And of course, the entire week gets capped out with Credit Suisse coming out and saying, hey, I know we've been bleeding cash and everything, and that this, Saudis say they're going to save us. Until now, hey, we've lost, $7.3 billion, and the Saudis are no longer there to support the bank. How do you think this ends? The epilogue. There's a lot of ways for this to end. I am of the opinion that sometimes things need to fail, but when you're talking about big banks, it's scary. We've seen through this entire time that they're scumbags. But if the world falls into the type of depression that would occur if a bank like Credit Suisse fully went under, life as we know it would cease to exist. And that's really scary to talk about. And if you have a thought about that or something that's different, put it in the comments. Give me, something to work with. It's almost one of those things where you just do the evil thing because not doing it is way worse. So most likely it's a bank that's too big to fail. And the answer to this question of what's going to happen didn't take very long to get answered. The Swiss National Bank has already stepped in. That's essentially their Federal Reserve stepping in and saying, hey, here's a lifeline. Here's money to keep you afloat. They gave them $54 million. I don't know the exact accounting behind how $54 million is going to help a bank that's bleeding billions. But I assume that it was enough to make people feel good at the time. But overall, it's not a pretty situation. It's a little crazy, but that's the end of the story. And I just wanted to get that out there. I hadn't seen any sort of summary. And once I jumped in, it was insane. Like, I had no idea how deep it went. And it goes incredibly deep. And I think even what I've done here probably just scratches the surface. So if you liked this video, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel for more. Not every video will probably be this long and this crazy. I just didn't expect this. So leave a like, subscribe. If you have thoughts about this, about just general economic stances that are going on right now, leave a comment below and I'll be happy to look through those and I'll probably respond to every single one. So appreciate everybody tuning in, and I'll see you later.